Hi, Bobby Lopez here from Texas State University. Today I'm going to talk about the two-mallet etude. That is the Gigue from the Cello Suite Number 3 by J.S. Bach. And I chose this etude particularly because I love cello suites on marimba, but also because I love the range of the marimba that it uses. What I'm going to talk about today are some of maybe the tricky spots, some of the things that you can work on in this etude, or in this piece rather, that will help you hopefully develop your sound and develop your musicality as you work on the piece. One of the very first things I have to mention to you is the mallets that I chose to use are the innovative percussion Erico 3s, Erico Dymo Signature Series. The reason that I chose these mallets, I really love these mallets, is because the yarn allows you to not have too much contact sounds. It's a material that is very warm, so you won't hear the tickiness of contact sound, which is great, especially for this piece. You know, they're a little bit more on the weighty side, so it really serves how I play, which is using the weight of the mallet to produce your sound rather than having to pick up the mallet or a sharp movement. So I really like the weight of these mallets. That's another reason that I chose the Erico 3s. And I love playing two mallet pieces with rattan, and these are rattan mallets. So aside from using the Erico 3s, I thought that I would come up with a few alternatives for the students out there that maybe aren't playing on a rosewood marimba, that might be playing on a synthetic instrument. A couple of different options that I have are the Innovative Percussion Artisan Series, and these are the IP 5004R. R is for rattan. If you do not like playing with rattan, then you can also opt for the Artisan Series IP 5004s, no R. This is a good option, I think, a good alternative. If you don't like the Erico 3s that are on rattan and you want to play them with birch, you can get these, and it sounds just as good. The yarn is a little bit different, so you are going to get a different color to your sound. For those of you playing on a synthetic instrument, checked out some of these mallets, and these are the Trevino IT4 by Innovative Percussion. I thought that these were a great alternative for those of you playing on a synthetic instrument. Obviously, you'll hear it here on rosewood. And so they might be a little bit too articulate, in my opinion, for rosewood for this piece, especially when you're down here and that register of the instrument. But for a synthetic instrument, I think this is a great alternative. So these are the Ivan Trevino IT4s. So some of the things to consider with this piece are dynamics. You have to make sure that you try to adhere to the printed dynamics on the page. And one of the first things that I noticed about this piece is that you start mezzo forte, but you have some accents. So you have to make sure that you bring those accents out in the mezzo forte, but be careful not to overplay those accents. You know, if we overplay those accents, then you'll start to get kind of a harsh sound. So don't think about downstrokes necessarily. Just think about using the weight of the mallet to produce those accents. The other thing that I want to talk about is thinking about some of these long crescendos. For instance, when we go to make sure that you're stretching out that crescendo and not crescendoing too soon or not waiting too far to the end to create that crescendo. So make sure that that is gradual. Try to make it as even as possible all the way through that phrase. Okay, we have a couple of rolls in this piece, and we don't have very many, but we do have a couple of them. And the thing that you want to try to remember as you're playing these rolls is we want to try to make as smooth a sound as possible. So one of the things that you'll have to try to think about is try to extend the roll as much as you can. So the very first one that I want to talk about is the one in this phrase where we go. That roll right there. You want to make sure that you're not playing that roll too short and that we don't try to articulate that roll too much so that we don't hear. I don't want to hear articulation in that roll. I want to hear a long sound. After all, it's a quarter note length. Then you move on to that eighth note. Okay? So think about extending that roll as much as you possibly can. Now, it's not going to be connected to the next note. You are going to try to put a little space in there, but just do your best to not shorten that roll too much. We do have a slight ritardando that is written, and it kind of separates the phrases. So you want to make sure that that ritardando is happening just ever so slightly, and that happens at this phrase. Then you begin the next phrase. So it is slight. You don't have to make too much of that ritardando, but you do want for it to feel like it's definitely a musical phrase. It's an arrival. And then we begin the next phrase. So that phrase is where we chose to conclude the piece. For these purposes. There's obviously more to the piece, but this is where our cut is. And so that ritardando, we're going to think of that as the end, as a conclusion to the piece. So in my opinion, I would go ahead and really feel like that ritardando should be slower at the very end. So take your time with that descending arpeggio and the roll at the end so that it really feels like you're concluding the piece. I hope that these tips have helped you a little bit in working on this piece of music. I love Bach and I love Bach on marimba, and I hope that you will enjoy working on this piece as much as I did, and I hope to maybe record the entire piece for you in the range, in the actual range. So good luck this year.